Hey guys, welcome back to the Legend Finance Academy. In this video, we're gonna talk about some enduring ways which'll secure people in poverty. Why do poor people stay poor? It's a question that everyone already seems to have an answer for.
The poor are lazy.
The poor can't manage money.
The poor don't have the right mindset.
But in real life, poverty is a very complex problem. There are many aspects to it, and it has many causes. The most widely used poverty definition focuses on economic poverty. This definition measures poverty by the amount of money a person earns and establishes poverty rates for communities and countries based on income inequality and financially drawn poverty lines. In this way, poverty becomes relative. The poverty threshold for a family of 4 in the United States is an income just over $26,000 a year. For a family of 4 living in absolute poverty in a low-income country, that amount of money is more than 36 times what they are forced to survive on each year. In this video, we'll focus on the poor in those relatively developed countries. Inflation. What is inflation? Due to the fact that the money has value, and its value can grow and diminish, the money you saved in a bank account, say 10 years ago, may not be able to buy the same amount of beer as it did, which means the purchasing power of your money decreased. This is when inflation is triggered. How much? Poverty and inflation have a close relationship in that a country with high inflation is likely to have high poverty rates as well. An inflation rate measures how much the prices of goods and services change over a year. Most countries have experienced high inflation at some point in history. The US, for example, the average inflation rate from 1913 to 2020 was 3.1%. In other words, goods and services cost, on average, just above 3% more than in the previous year. In terms of purchasing power, the amount of stuff that a single US dollar can buy this year will decrease by just above 3%, assuming the average long-term inflation rate. Too expensive to be poor. However, inflation rate is not just a fixed percentage for the whole society. Because of inequality of inflation, it's actually getting more expensive to be poor. Over the past 2 years, prices have risen more quickly for many of the things that low-income households spend a lot of their money on, such as rent and utilities. As a result, these households' families earning less than $20,000 are experiencing a higher rate of inflation than the public at large, even as their wages have stagnated. We tend to talk about inflation as a single number affecting the whole economy. But everyone experiences a slightly different rate of inflation for the simple reason that we all spend money on different things. The price of cigarettes matters primarily to smokers. The price of diapers affects mostly parents of young children. And the price of gas is a much bigger deal to someone with an 80-mile daily commute than to someone who only takes the car out for weekend excursions. From February 2012 to February 2014, the poorest fifth of households have experienced an annual rate of inflation that's about 0.2 of a percentage point higher than the population as a whole, while the richest fifth have experienced inflation about only 0.1 of a point higher. Next, inflation is underway. As the coronavirus relief package, Germany, Japan, and the US have all signed the economic relief bill, which will inject trillions of printed dollars into the economy. The flood of money was so immense that it did more than save the grounded economy. In one of history's biggest economic shocks, it made Americans, at least in dollar terms, richer than ever. Once the economy reopens, consumers who have been cooped up for almost a year will rush to purchase goods and services that they were unable to utilize during the pandemic, which will result in greater profits for businesses, which in turn will lead businesses to increase spending. Altogether, the post-pandemic boost will provide immense economic growth in the short term. However, when coupled with the enormous sums of stimulus measures outlined above, the economy runs the very real risk of overheating. This would not be overheating, it would be starting a fire, the former chief economist for the International Monetary Fund Olivier Blanchard wrote on Twitter. There's a real possibility that within the year, we're going to be dealing with the most serious incipient inflation problem that we have faced in the last 40 years. Scarcity. What is scarcity? The resources that we value, time, money, labor, tools, land, and raw materials, exist in limited supply. There are simply never enough resources to meet all our needs and desires. This condition is known as scarcity. Tunneling mindset. How many of you have struggled to find your car keys while running late to work in the morning only to realize they were in your pocket the whole time? In this simple example, we understand that the scarcity of time leads to an increase in bandwidth tax, which then impairs the capacity to search the most obvious place wherein which the keys might be. According to Dr. Sendil Mullainathan, a professor of economics at Harvard University, the poor necessarily require higher levels of self-control and restraint. In his book, Scarcity, Dr. Mullainathan explains that scarcity of financial resources affects the poor, as they cannot afford to waste a dime, nevertheless shell out wads of cash to splurge on non-essential wants. The working poor are constantly trying to stretch their dollar, so they can scrape by and fit the bare necessities in their tight budgets. Dr. Mullainathan explains that in these circumstances, there is a profound psychological dynamic at work called the bandwidth tax. The single-mindedness and tunneled vision caused by scarcity leads to reduced mental function, which means one can no longer solving problems with logical thinking, nor controlling any impulses. For the working poor, budgeting or planning errors can occur even after meticulous tracking because their minds are constantly ruminating about financial struggles. For example, a high level of bandwidth tax may lead to more forgetfulness, causing missed or late payments, which then lead to further penalty fees. Also, the working poor may experience reduced ability to solve unexpected problems like a bounced check or a failed transaction. The outcome, they dig themselves into a deeper hole. In this way, scarcity not only raises the cost of mistakes, it also provides more opportunity to make mistakes by reducing mental capacity. As a result of this constant state of anxiety, unease, and impaired mental functioning, the working poor may become more vulnerable to shady payday loans, fringe banking schemes, and predatory mortgages. Solution: perception of money. People in poverty perceive money differently from the way rich people do. Down to our DNA, our personality plays a part as data are already collected in our neurology. The way we were brought up by our parents or grandparents or elders' belief lay the foundation on how we perceive money in our early lives. Can you recall when was your first money experience? Was it a positive or negative start? Through the years of growing up, nobody gave you a how to use money guide. There isn't any academic subjects on personal money management. You picked up money habits from people around, your siblings, your best friends, your social cliques, guru from some financial seminars you have attended. Your schools, communities and associations have a set of culture that shaped your money perception system, and in some cases, different religions may have variable values on finances. The media that we watch, hear and read, are they all released without any control, modification or censorships? I bet you know the answer. A common instance, you might have heard you need $1 million to retire. Did you ever challenge this notion or resort to it? As we see how technology has transformed the world, money is being exchanged and transacted. Money has now taken an intangible form, example, cashless payment. Does this affect your perception on money? Definitely. We gather information from our world every day and use it to become who we are. Our brain works like a sponge, it takes in lots of information, organizes and processes it. However, not all the details are absorbed. We tend to apply perceptual filters, those that triggers our senses stay, while the rest are just passing through. Whatever stays forms your unique perception. Thus, it translates into your habits and attitudes towards handling money. So where does that leave us? Well, we have to do our best to put the current value of money in the context of the opportunity cost of it, not in the monetary value. When you go to spend $20,000 on a car, think about what you could use that $20,000 on later. When you reach $500,000 in savings, think about what type of income it can generate in retirement and how it compares to your expenditures. Finally, when you're saving, remember that $100 extra equates to another X number of hours of you not having to work later. These little tricks will help you keep in touch with the real underlying value instead of your perception of the numbers. Save. Bandwidth. There was an example of Kenyan farmers failing to use fertilizer and missing out on large gains to their yields. By getting farmers to pre-purchase the fertilizer when they were flush with cash after harvest, more benefited from the yield gains. Although again, are their decisions because they are inherently short-sighted or taxed? Ultimately, the long-term solution to the costs of scarcity is creating bandwidth and a buffer stock of slack. Our goal is to make choices that reduce scarcity as much as we can. Because of unlimited wants, we can never eliminate scarcity, but it can be reduced by the right choices. Another way to say this is that we want to get the maximum satisfaction possible out of our limited resources. We don't want to make just any choice. We want to make the best choice. There are 3, and only 3, options for us to deal with scarcity, and all of us must deal with scarcity because there are always limited resources while desires are unlimited. Those 3 options are: 1. Increase income. 2. Reduce our wants. 3. Use our existing resources wisely, invest wisely. As long as we live with the scarcity mindset, we won't be able to increase the amount of money or prosperity in our life. Even if we happen to get a great opportunity to earn or get a big amount of money, as per some sources, more than 90% of lottery winners do not end up being rich. Money. Poor mindsets splurge on materialistic things. Rich mindsets save, and invest. They are intentional. They create a plan to pay down debt and follow it, month after month until they're debt-free. Well, I can't give an absolute amount, but a good rule of thumb is to save at least 20% of your take-home income. This rule may not sound new to many of you, however it may not be easily practiced by many as well. I believe during the months where we experienced nation lockdown, most of us spent most of our time working from home. And because we have no social gatherings, weddings or birthday parties to attend, less traveling to work, many people shared with me that they get to save more, as much as up to 60% of their income. Less shopping and grooming are needed since they are just commuting between bedroom and dining room. The rich set goals and by focusing on them and constantly working toward them, typically achieve them. Note that it isn't just money. This is why the wealthy are less likely to be overweight too. If you're already used to consistently working toward financial goals, an exercise and diet plan is just one more plan to follow. By now, you would have realized that the key to having riches is not about how much you earn, but rather, your wealth depends on how much you can set aside and save. When you cut down on your lifestyle spending, the wants, and focus only on daily necessity, the needs, you know you can actually be a good saver. So stop giving yourself excuses that because you don't earn that high income, you can't save that much. Let this be your new habit. Put aside 20% of your income on your payday, then calculate your fixed expenses. The remaining are for your variable and entertainment expenses. Try not to spend all your remaining savings, because the key to be rich tomorrow depends on how much you force yourself to save today. Education. Poor mindsets are oblivious to the importance of constant learning or education. Rich mindsets learn and update their skills throughout their lives. Education remains a major determinant of lifetime income. Note that this doesn't mean you have to go to an expensive private college or acquire an advanced degree. However, it's basically doubtless you'll be poor if you don't finish high school. One difference between the rich versus poor mindset is that the rich understand the value of knowledge. They're not part of the 40% of adults who don't crack open a book after graduating high school. They're reading industry publications to learn more about their field and excel at work. They're reading about money management and personal development so that they do better in life. They're constantly learning. They'll ensure that they keep up their certifications, and they'll proactively earn additional certifications to qualify for raises and promotions. Remember, for anyone to cross the line of poverty to wealth, you need to have a change of mindset. If you want to get rich, then you need to change your mindset and begin to see things from the perspective of the wealthy.